Hey there, and welcome! Today, we're going to tear apart one of the most basic building blocks of any business, cost. And trust me, it's way more interesting than just a number on a sticker. So, let's get right into it.
All right, to kick things off, let's start with the simple question. Imagine a wooden table. What does it really cost to make? You're probably thinking, easy, it's the wood and the person who built it. But what about the sandpaper, the nails, the electricity for the saw, or even the rent for the workshop? See, it's deeper than it looks. This one question is going to guide us through the whole thing.
So, here's what we've got on tap. We'll look at what's in a price tag, break down the 3 core elements of cost, then build it all back up. We'll even check out a master cost sheet, see how costs behave, and wrap up with a final thought.
Right, so that price you see on an item, think of it like the last page of a book. You're seeing the conclusion, but you're missing the entire story that came before it. That number is a culmination of a whole bunch of different costs, and getting a handle on them is, well, it's step one to really understanding how a business ticks. Okay, so believe it or not, every single cost for anything you can buy boils down to just 3 basic things. You can think of them as the raw ingredients, the DNA of cost, really. They are material, labor, and expenses. Let's dig into each one.
First up, material. This one's pretty straightforward, right? It's the actual physical stuff that becomes the product. For a table, it's the timber. Simple enough. But even with something this basic, there's a little twist we need to talk about.
And here's that twist. We have to split materials into 2 camps. On one side, you've got direct material. That's the wood for our table. It's right there, you can see it, you can touch it. But then you have indirect material. Think about stuff like glue or the oil used to keep the machines running. They're totally necessary, but how much oil did one table use? You can't really say, right? This difference is absolutely key because it helps a business figure out where every single penny is actually going.
All right, next element, labor. This is the human power, the skill, the time, the sweat that goes into turning a pile of wood into a table. It's the doing part. And you've probably guessed it by now, just like with materials, we've got to split this one up too.
So here's the deal. The carpenter who is physically cutting the wood and assembling the table, that's direct labor. You're paying them specifically to make that thing. But what about the supervisor who manages the whole workshop? Or the person cleaning up the sawdust at the end of the day? That's indirect labor. Their work is essential, for sure, but they aren't hands-on with one specific product. And splitting these helps a business know exactly how much it costs to make the thing versus how much it costs to just run the place.
And last but not least, we have expenses. This is kind of the catch-all bucket. If it's a cost, but it's not material and it's not labor, it gets tossed in here. And yep, same pattern. There's a direct and an indirect version.
Okay, check this out. Let's say you get a custom order that requires a special laser engraving machine you don't own. You rent it just for that one job. That rental fee, that's a direct expense. It's tied directly to that specific order. But what about the rent for the whole building, the insurance policy, the bill for keeping the lights on? Those are indirect expenses. You can't point to one table and say, you cost me 5 cents of electricity. These are basically the costs of having a business at all.
All right, so we've taken the whole idea of cost and smashed it into tiny pieces. Now, let's put it back together. There's a specific way accountants do this, kind of like following a recipe, to build up from those small pieces to the final total cost. So, here's the recipe. First, you take all your direct stuff, direct material, direct labor, direct expenses, and you mix them together. That gives you your prime cost. That's the core. Then you start folding in the indirect costs, what people call overheads. Add in the factory overheads and boom, you get your factory cost. Then you mix in the office overheads. And for the final step, you add the selling overheads, marketing and sales stuff. And that gets you to the total cost, the whole shebang.
And where does all this math live? It all gets organized on one super important document, the cost sheet. It's like the master blueprint. Let's look at a quick example to make this real.
Okay, so in this example, once you add up all those direct costs we talked about, you land at a prime cost of 104,000 rupees. That's the baseline cost to actually create the good.
But hold on, we're not there yet. What about all that indirect factory stuff? The supervisor's pay, the rent, keeping the machines oiled. All that has to get added in.
Toss those in and our total climbs. Now we're at a factory cost of 118,000 rupees. This number represents the full cost of getting the product made and sitting on the loading dock ready to go. And for the final piece of the puzzle, we add everything else: the admin staff, the sales team's commissions, the marketing budget. And that brings us to the big one, the final cost of sales, 130,600 rupees. That is the real all-in cost to produce and sell the product.
Okay, so knowing all those ingredients is great for bookkeepers, but if you actually want to make smart decisions for a business, you have to look at cost in a different way. You have to understand how costs behave. This is maybe the most important part of all.
And it really just comes down to two types. You've got fixed costs. Think of your monthly rent. It doesn't matter if you make 1 table or 1,000 tables. The landlord wants the same amount of money. The cost is fixed. Then you have variable costs. This is your wood. If you want to make more tables, you have to buy more wood. The cost varies with how much you produce. It's that simple.
Okay, now, I want you to really let this next idea sink in. It sounds like a brain teaser at first, but it's one of the most important concepts in business. Here it is. Fixed costs are variable per unit, while variable costs are fixed per unit. What on earth does that mean? Well, think about it. The cost of wood, a variable cost, is maybe $50 per table. It's fixed on a per unit basis. But your rent, a fixed cost, is different for every single table you make. Let me show you. So, let's say your rent is a fixed 6,000 rupees. If you make 800 tables, you have to spread that 6,000 across all of them. So each table carries $7.50 in rent cost. But what if you get more efficient and make 1,000 tables? Now the rent cost per table drops to 6 rupees. And if you can crank out 1,200 tables, it's down to just 5 rupees per table. The more you make, the cheaper each individual item becomes. This is huge. It's the magic of economies of scale.
Wow. Okay. We've gone from the basic ingredients of cost all the way to how it behaves. But I want to leave you with one last thing. It's a type of cost that you'll never, ever see printed on a spreadsheet. But it might just be the most important one of all when it comes to making choices.
And that is opportunity cost. It's the value of what you didn't do. It's the benefit you missed out on from the next best alternative. So if you spend a year building a business, your opportunity cost is the salary you gave up at the job you could have had. It's the cost of the path you chose not to take.
So I'll leave you with this question. Now that you know what's really inside a price, think about the last thing you bought. What was its hidden opportunity cost? That $10 you spent didn't just buy you lunch. It was also $10 you couldn't invest or save or spend on something else. What did you really give up? Once you start thinking like this, you'll see that understanding cost changes everything. Thanks for diving in with me on this one.